Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel for the ones who have been here before and welcome to the ones who have not. My name is Janae and I am the owner of Confidently You Creations. And for today's video, we are going to be doing this simple beginner's Tumblr tutorial. It has been a requested thing that I do a video to show you guys how to complete a Tumblr from start to finish, and we're just going to be using a simple fine glitter to do this Tumblr. And the image I actually got from Creative Fabrica. You can sign up for just $1 and you have access to thousands and hundreds of thousands of fonts and all that jazz. That information is down in the description box, along with a discount code for the glitter. So yeah, I guess we can jump right into today's tutorial. And like I said, I will show you guys how to create a Tumblr from start to finish. All right, so first you're going to start off with your plain Tumblr. So now we're going to prep this thing. I typically use a 60 or 80 grit sanding block. And I also use Barkeeper's Friend to put on the Tumblr to where we can prep it. The reason why I use Barkeeper's Friend is kind of like if you're familiar with like pumice, it just helps to get rid of all that grime and that gunk on the Tumblr. As you can see, there's going to be some like black stuff to come off of the Tumblr, like that factory coating. It just helps to get it off a lot easier, and you're not like using a lot of elbow grease to scrub it. So it just helps to add a little extra to prepping the Tumblr. So now I'm just going to wash it off with some soap and water. And then I'm going to rub it down with some rubbing alcohol. Let that dry for just a few minutes until it's not wet anymore. And then we're going to take it outside to spray paint it. All right, once you're outside, I'm going to use magenta for this. I feel like the magenta and the glitter that we're using matches perfectly. So just going to shake your can up, shake it up really, really good. And you are going to keep your Tumblr and your can moving to avoid drips. It is a little cold outside, so I think I did get just a little bit drippage, but it's okay. We're going to cover it with glitter. But again, you want to stay about a foot away, 12 inches away from your Tumblr. You want to spray it horizontally up and you want to spray it vertically up and down, and don't forget your bottom. So always just keep the can and the Tumblr moving to where you're not spraying in one spot. That's how you get drips. So once that's done, let that dry for about an hour or two, depending on how cold it is. And then you'll know it's dry because it will be dry to the touch. So for today's glitter, we're going to be using Crimson, and this is from Glitterful. There is a discount code in the description box. For anything on the website, not just this glitter. So we're going to be using Mod Podge for this, and the brushes, everything that I use is in my Amazon list, and I'll link that down in the description box also of where I get my little brushes from. So you're just going to coat your Tumblr with Mod Podge. You don't want anything too thick, just an even thin coat all the way around, making sure you don't have any like stringy lumps in your Mod Podge. Since we're doing a fine glitter, you want to make sure everything is nice and smooth, and also get your bottom. Once you're finished with that, you can go ahead in with your glitter. There is no rhyme or reason. There's no better way to coat glitter on a Tumblr. You can start from the top, you can start from the bottom, you can start from the middle, whatever. Just make sure you get full coverage on the whole thing. I'm just scraping some off of the paper there and making sure I coated everything properly. And you can do this again if you like. You can put everything back in the jar, and then you can coat it one more time to make sure you've gotten every little nook and cranny. Shake all the excess off and let that dry for about an hour. Alrighty, so now we're going to be talking about epoxy. So you need half and half of each part A and B. So I have part A here and I have part B, 15 milliliters of both, just to make sure you've gotten an even amount. You can put them in 2 separate cups for now. I typically put it all in 1 cup, but when you're first starting off, you can put it in 2 separate cups to make sure your epoxies are completely even. So now I'm dumping part B into part A. Part B is not as thick as part A, so it's easier to get out of the cup. So once you've gotten all of part B out into part A, you can then mix it. You want to mix it really slow to avoid getting a lot of bubbles. Bubbles are perfectly fine, but you just don't want your epoxy full of bubbles. One, it makes it really hard to distinguish if you've mixed it enough, especially if you're just starting out. If you like really fast mix it and now it's all cloudy because you mixed it really fast, you don't know if you stirred it enough. So just mix it slow for about 3 minutes. You'll notice that it's not as thick anymore and it's going to turn clear, just like here. So once you've mixed it nice and slow, you will have some bubbles in there. Don't be discouraged. I've only had a perfect mix a couple of times, but it's okay. So it's just gonna be nice and clear. You can see my glove at the bottom of it. That's how you know it's clear. There's no stringies in it and you're good to go. Okay, so now I've already coated this once. It was really late and I forgot to record, but this is the same thing we're gonna do for your first coat and your second coat. You're gonna take your epoxy, you're gonna pour it on your tumbler, and I like to go in just slow strokes around and kind of down the tumbler at first. So I'm just gonna get the rim. I'm gonna make sure that I coat this thing really good. And I mixed up, the first time I mixed up 30 milliliters when it was just the glitter, when I've added the epoxy on top of the glitter. And then this time I'm doing about 15 to 20 milliliters. And then I put the first coat on and then I let that dry for about 6 hours or turn. And then I went in with my second coat here. So again, I'm working kind of down the cup. And then once I have coated everything, I make sure I get my rim really good. And then after that, I'm gonna get my bottom. And then I'm just going to work up or down the cup. It doesn't matter which one you do. If you want to work up the cup, that's perfectly fine. But I'll show you here what I mean in just a second after I'm done getting the bottom. All right, so this is what I mean by working up the cup. Just to make sure I've gotten every little nook and cranny, I always just do some simple strokes going up the cup or down the cup, whichever one you prefer. Sometimes if you're lefty or righty, it changes. But I'm also going a little bit above that rim to make sure I, coated the rim really good, and then circling back around the bottom and the bottom edge of that tumbler as well. So let that turn and let that dry for 12 hours before you move into the sanding part. You want to make sure it is completely dry before you do your sanding. Not tacky, not sticky, nothing. So this tumbler should be pretty darn smooth. We use a fine glitter. You should not have to do a lot of sanding on this bad boy. So I'm going to use a 60 grit sanding block, but if you do not feel comfortable using that abrasive of a block, then you can use something like 100 or 120. Because you do not need to add a lot of pressure to this. The base of it is just a little bit kind of like rough. So I'm just gonna add, I'm just gonna sand the bottom just a little bit. Our main focus is the rim, okay? So I always sand the rim, no matter if I am not glittering a cup, if I'm glittering a cup, you always wanna sand the rim to expose a thin line of stainless steel as I'm trying to show you there. I wiped it off with alcohol to where you guys can kind of see it a little bit better. But you want to expose a thin line of stainless steel here to where your epoxy has something to adhere to on its final layers. This is how you create a tumbler that does not chip, does not crack at the top. You don't want that. So you want to go ahead and sand it to get to expose that thin line of stainless steel, okay? So now what we're going to do is you're going to go ahead and wipe it off with some rubbing alcohol after you've washed it with soap and water, just to remove any of that debris. And it should be smooth, like it should be perfectly smooth. And if it's not, it's okay. You can sand the actual tumbler. I didn't sand the tumbler because I didn't need to, but if you do need to, then you can go in and sand that, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and remove that excess paint that got inside of the tumbler when we were spray painting. So you just take some acetone. I get mine from the hardware store like Lowe's or Home Depot. It's in the paint aisle, and it's, you know, basically like a acetone paint removal type of thing. I know there's many brands, but I actually get mine from the hardware store. And then once you remove a lot of your paint, and now you're going to go in with your crafting knife and remove the epoxy that was kind of stuck in there along the rim and the inside of the cup. And then you're just going to run it along one more time with some acetone and wash it with soap and water one more time to get that smell of the acetone out of the tumbler. All right, so once you are done with that, you are good to place your decal on here. We have sanded the rim, we've wiped it down, and now we're going to put the decal on of our choice. This one I got from Creative Fabrica. I just kind of typed in, I don't know, moms or something. I didn't really know what I was looking for this, but you can also just add your name to your tumbler, or you can add a saying. It's totally up to you. But I just wanted something simple for this tumbler for you guys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some transfer paper. And for the transfer paper, you want to make sure it has lines in it to where you can line it up at the top part of that decal to where you know it's nice and even. And then we are going to burnish it on with our scraper tool to make sure it is adhered to our transfer paper. So now what I'm going to do, I usually take that top blue line and I just, what do you call it? Line it up with the rim of the cup, and then I just drag it down to make sure that it is even, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to measure it on all three angles, the beginning, middle, and the end of the decal. So right on the line where I place the decal, I'm going to measure it to the rim of the cup to make sure all three areas are lined up. The last thing you want is your decal to be crooked, and then you got to do it again. So measure, 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 guys. So now once I measured it and it's good, I'm going to peel off half of the decal, and then I'm going to trim it away, and I'm going to firmly press that against the tumbler, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. This makes sure that your decal does not move, and you do not get like bubbles in the image. You know, since it is larger, the last thing you want is to have bubbles in it, and then it gets crooked because, you know, there's like air pockets in it. So I always like to do the hinge method to make sure to keep that from happening. So now we're good to place our coats of epoxy. So now we're going to go in the same thing we did the first time. This is about 15 milliliters of epoxy, and I'm going to place this on top of my tumbler twice. What you want to do is go ahead and place your epoxy, 15 milliliter, part A, part B, even coats. Coat it, let it dry for 6 hours, and then place another coat of epoxy on top. Everybody's temperature in their area is different, so just make sure your tumbler is completely dry, guys. And then that is it. That is the ending result of today's video. Thank you guys so much for staying to the end of the video. I appreciate it. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We upload every Friday. And I totally felt like I did a lot of talking in this video, but it was very essential to you guys because you were just starting out and you wanted to know how to make a tumbler from start to finish. But if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will get back to you guys. Thank you guys so much. See you next week.